G'day there guys, welcome back to In My Shed. I'm BC. I started tearing down the internal grinder spindle for my cylindrical grinder and then I realised there was something missing, an audience. So we're back in the shed. I'm working on the items that go with the cylindrical grinder one by one to try and get the machine up and running. I really need to because it's laid out all over the floor in my shed and it's just taking up all the room. So I'll bring you in to show you how a precision grinding machine is built, and there's a couple of things that really stand out. One is the workmanship. Everything is done to the 10th of a thou. Very good materials go into it, and the weight of it. Like this thing weighs about 25 kilos on its own. It's a solid lump of cast iron with a big cylindrical steel spindle in it. And everything has to be weighty to absorb the vibration. A couple of things you need when you're grinding and you're after extreme accuracy is an accurate tool and no vibration. So everything has to be done really well, and that's why on this little high-speed internal spindle they use a flat belt so you don't feel the joint of the belt going thumpity thump at 10,000 RPM. But I've got the parts of the spindle taken apart. There's been a bit of a blue and white apron brigade here before me, and not Graham, prior to him. The front bearing nut was loose by about 2.5 turns. The rear bearing nut, the preload nut, it would have held the bloody Titanic back with the torque that was applied to that. But at least the machine is built sturdy enough to survive that kind of abuse. But I think you'll be surprised to find what seals the shaft, or what the lack of seals on the shaft are. I know it surprised the hell out of me. And I'll show you a few of the spindles that I do have that came along with the machine. So I'll bring the camera around, give you a bit of a look. These episodes will be a little bit shorter until I sort my later camera out, as the battery in this one is starting to become a corpse. Okay, bring you in a closer view. Okay, well I hope you can see this item well enough. It's a big cast iron housing. It has a split inner sleeve, and there's two sizes of spindles. This is the smaller high-speed spindle. There is obviously a larger low-speed spindle. Goes together quite well. That's the turn-aroundy bit on the inside, and the only thing that seals it is the return there. Goes over the front of the spindle housing, and that goes on the back. Mind you, they go together with very little clearance. If they go back together, yep. So this runs around over that area there. It won't go the rest of the way unless I give it a really hefty whack with a hammer. That's the front bearing nut that was left well and truly undone, which quite surprised me. The rear bearing nut that was bejesus tight, and that's the quill retaining bolt that goes in through the back. That's quite an interesting item. That's the drive pulley. It's made out of a phenolic material, and you can see it's done quite a lot of internal spindle work. There's probably about a 1/16 or 1.6 millimeter step in the pulley, which I find to be quite a bit, but that screws onto the rear of the item. After the rear cover goes on, now that just runs inside the housing, and the thing that keeps the poo out is the minimum clearance. There's probably only a couple of tenths of a thou there, but also they're running at extreme speed, and that centrifugally throws all the crap away. I'm not going to put that on because it's a beggar of a thing to get out. Okay, that puts the pulley on the back, and that goes in from the rear. Now, it's not a collet chuck as such. It has a tapered holder, goes into the back of it, And I hope this is coming up on good enough on the screen. Yeah. Okay, and that's the spindle. It's shaped a little bit like a collet, but there's no collapse. But you believe me, there's no bloody clearance in the hole either. It's very, very well made. A little retaining socketed cap screw. So this goes with that at Suzanne. The retaining nut does up to hold the spindle into the quill. It just slides into a plain taper at the front, and the quill retaining bolt at the back end gets done up. Okay, quite a simple system. I've got to split this housing and pull the quill out. I want to wire brush all of this back for painting because it looks bloody awful at the moment. All of the paint is just dying with old age. It's a bit like me. There are an assorted bunch of quills that come with it. That obviously goes with the larger assembly for a 1A1 plain outside wheel, or would be a plain wheel to be for inside grinding. With this short quill, another longer quill with a different internal wheel, another quill, beautifully made, and from my experience the material used in this sort of item is just a very, very good quality steel. And also some quills for very small wheels. So yeah, it's quite a good collection of gear. I'm lucky enough to have quite a few spare nuts and some small adapters that would be for holding a threaded mounted point. A lot of that was in the aircraft industry. You find that small drills riveting threaded on the end to fit into right angle drills, etc. And some mounted points are directly threaded. Gets rid of collets and problems, and they butt up against that face there with a flange normally. Okay, that's about all. I'll just clean it up, paint it, get it back together. All of these surfaces need a polish it. They need a clean, but I don't want to clean them with anything abrasive, because once you start degrading the accuracy of these very, very well made tapers, you lose the accuracy of the machine. You don't want 1.5 hour run out of a mounted point at the front of the machine. That would just destroy what it's all built for. Okay, I'll get all this moved away and I'll bring up some of the other attachments it's got. Okay, here's a few of the other items. This is a steady to put underneath long, slim workpieces, and it's a real work of art. Once again, brutally rigid, very, very heavy, and a very interesting mechanism. The lower anvil, I suppose you would call it, or rest, raises and lowers with the rear adjuster, and this one just in and out. And the rubbing blocks are once again a very, very, very old phenolic. Now, we're talking back in the 1950s. Material science wasn't quite what it is today, and they don't have a lot of exotic Kevlars or items. So yeah, just a basic phenolic, fibre impregnated, and phenolic comes from phenols out of petrochemical industry, and a lot of the paint back then, like the Rolls-Royce paints, were made out of phenolic resins, and they would harden off and be extremely tough, but also very, very good at being oil resistant. In a lot of Rolls-Royce applications, you had oil on the outside. This is mounted to the stopper or the front edge of the table, and the retaining bolt comes through at about 30 to 40 degrees to hold it down. And it's that sort of rigidity and weight that gives you inherent precision and also a very, very good finish with this sort of machine. Oh, move that one out. A little bit more intricate. This one is the travelling steady. Very similar to a lathe steady. Once again, very well made. And as you can see, it's going to be an absolute bitch to strip down unless I pull the parts out of it. Hell of a thing to clean. But yeah, once I get it all working and lubed up, it'll be a fantastic item to use. But yeah, swing it around. You can see the other side. So although the machine's been repainted at least once and abused a little bit and used quite a lot, it still is the basis of something I can build into a very good, clean and accurate machine, and that's what I'm trying to do. And last but not least, now that's a diamond wheel dresser, complete with a small diamond. Why they go for such a small shank, I don't know, but also it looks like the diamond's pissed off out of the front of that. It's rather blunt nosed. But is that a Brutus of a machine? Just look at that for the weight. And this is one reason why when I dress a grinding wheel on my small wrong fu tool and cutter grinder or one of the other grinders, that'll be the phone, Reg. Well, back again. Rallies don't care when they call you up, but I don't mind talking to them. Okay, I just had a look. I thought this was an adjuster bolt for the slide, but it only works a clamping jaw underneath. Okay, you can clamp this slide here, move the diamond backwards and forwards, and obviously use your table to engage into the wheel. But when you've got an item as rigid as this, you don't get chatter. And that's 7 or 8 kilos on its own, so that absorbs all of the chatter and the force goes down into the table, and that's it. You get a nice job done. So they're the major attachments I've got here. I can't think of much else. I have to build up a chuck and a face plate, but we'll talk about that later on. I'll bring you back up. Okay, well, I'll sign off here. I've been yapping on for quite some time. As I was saying, I've got a 3-jaw chuck and a backing plate that I've got in a box for my big dividing head that I've never used. So it'll come out, backing plate made up, and that'll fit onto the cylindrical grinder. And I have a small 4-jaw Pratt Bernard chuck that I've adapted to use in the lathe, but I'll also change the backing on that so I can swing it over onto the cylindrical grinder if I need to. And there'll be an interesting journey that I'll bring you along. I've got lots of grinding arbors to make and tooling, and at last I can make them with a bit of accuracy. Okay, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll bring you in a few days for another episode. Bye for now.